I should explain my background here today. I thought since this will go live in February, I would put on all my red and my red earrings. And I thought, you know, we've been playing around with different backgrounds. We still have our Christmas tree up, but that didn't seem right for February. So I thought, well, we'll use the Zoom background and put up hearts. And then I looked at pictures and went, that would look really stupid. So what's the next romantic thing? A castle. So this is actually the interior of Smailholm Castle. And so last night for the Wordsmiths and Wolfhound podcast, whatever you want to call it, that Chris and I did last night, we talked about a book called In the Keep of Time that's set in Smailholm Castle. And it was a place where back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, couples would go all the way up the stairs. It was completely empty inside at the time, like no floors, but they would climb up these stairs to the roof, 4 stories up, and they would sit on the roof. And that's where couples would court in Scotland, in Kelso, Scotland in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. So I thought that was really appropriate for a Valentine's episode.
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Before I moved back to the US in 14, I lived for a very long time in Germany. And the last town I lived in was in Rheinland-Pfalz, in that little western bit of Germany that pokes up against the Netherlands and Belgium and France and Luxembourg. And we lived right across a small river from a 10th century castle. The oldest bit was 10th century.
Cool.
And this kind of reminds me of the interior. Of course, you know, stone castles look like stone castles, but
what's beer number 1?
What is beer number 1? So first of all, let me say, Sadira, that oftentimes when I get the readings, I read them and I go, this is not speaking to me beer-wise. Yours were super easy.
Story takes place in a neighborhood bar.
Takes place in a neighborhood bar in a beer mecca of the U.S.
Oh yeah.
So it was like, oh, this is super simple. I got this. And I'm gonna guess from reading that you might be a beer fan.
I love a good craft beer. Okay,
good. So first beer is Bell's Amber Ale. I chose this because Mac and Jack's Amber Ale features prominently in this first reading. It's mentioned more than once. And we, of course, can't. So obviously, you got to go with what's in the story. It's the no-brainer pairing. But we can't get Mac and Jack's Amber Ale here. But Mac and Jack's Amber Ale is a good regional amber ale, so I thought I would go with a good regional amber ale that we can get here. So this is Bell's from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and it's just a really nice amber ale, nice caramel malty, some light citrusy hops over the top, and a little bit of bitterness. It's a beer that I really like. I think you'll like this one, Laura.
Okay, Chris promised me I'm going to hate all 3 of them, so.
Oh, I think you'll like this one. Cheers.
Cheers.
Prost.
Remember the time I said of that one beer, it's kind of like the Eco Nokia Sherry. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
It tastes kind of weird, but I want some more.
All right, good. Because it's mostly malty, and you like the malty beers.
It's tart. I think I would especially like this on a summer day, like a very hot summer day. This would
tart.
be cool
It
and
should not
refreshing.
be tart.
Well, maybe that's not quite the right word. It's definitely got a little bit of a kind of bite to it, I think.
Medium bitterness. Let's call it medium bitterness.
Okay, maybe
and then
bitter is
some kind of citrusy hops, and there's some, I think, fermentation fruit in there as well.
I enjoy hearing you talk about this because then I'm tasting it, actually trying to taste what you're talking about.
I love a good amber ale. I wrote a piece long time ago because people often trash on amber ales as being boring beers. So I wrote a piece long ago say that I had a confession to make. I like boring beer.
Well, sometimes
I love a good amber ale.
Mhm.
So,
And if you like the
cheers.
taste,
Oh, we already said cheers, but
cheers. Yeah, cheers again. So Sadira, we are on reading number 1, Christmas Rekindled, Banger's Tavern Romance, book 1.
Yes. Okay, and this bit is told from the point of view of Charlie Corey. She worked in Banger's Tavern, which is located on in a really interesting district, a real life district called the 6th Avenue district, on 6th Avenue, obviously. And it's full of all kinds of funky bars and restaurants and a whole lot of record shops. If you're a fan of vinyl, it's a good place to be. And cannabis dispensaries and vintage shops with all kinds of funky clothing and collectibles. And it's just a really neat place. And she comes back into town to take care of her estranged father, Jack Corey, who had his leg badly smashed up in an accident on the job. She's not looking forward to spending the holidays in Tacoma, and she is heading out to blow off some steam at this favorite old hangout of hers where she once worked, called Banger's Tavern, so named because it used to be an English-style pub famous for its bangers and mash. And if people want to do other things with their imagination with that title, that's not on me. Okay, here we go. Hands stuffed in her pockets, breath puffing like a locomotive, she rounded the corner onto 6th Avenue, Tacoma's 16-block stretch of night spots, vintage clothing boutiques, record shops, restaurants, and cannabis dispensaries. The yeasty, sugary scent wafting from legendary donuts almost lured her in, but she craved a different treat, a fat, juicy, grease dripping down your elbows burger topped with crispy fried onions and melty cheese curds, with a side of the crunchiest, goldenest tater tots this side of the Cascades, washed down with a Mac and Jack's African amber. Hopefully Dawn would be working tonight. How long since she last saw her old boss and surrogate mom? 1 year? 2? Charlie's cheeks heated with shame. She stepped around a grizzled old dude shouting slurred curses at an invisible foe, demurred when another wild-eyed guy offered her some choice indica bud, and gave a wide berth to the boisterous dude bros smoking outside jazz knuckles. Fairy lights and glitter snowflakes twinkled from the wedding gown resale boutique, and a plastic Santa holding a fat joint grinned from a record shop's window. She grinned back at him. The businesses on the Ave might change, but the funky vibe stayed the same. Even on a Tuesday night, this street was packed with fun seekers, street people, and college kids from nearby Puget Sound University, her alma mater. Her wide smile widened when she reached Banger's and inhaled the tempting odor of greasy bar snacks. The bouncer was new, big as a mountain with a shaved head and a sweet baby face. He checked her ID, then motioned her through. She stopped in the doorway and let the familiar sights, sounds, and smells transport her back to her college years, where she spent most nights here schlepping beers and burgers. Same wooden bar, Denson cigarette burns preserved under a layer of shiny varnish. Same neon beer signs, same beer coasters and beer ads covering the walls, same TVs broadcasting a hodgepodge of sports, not that anyone was paying attention. Nothing had changed. After all, why mess with perfection? Same noisy, eclectic crowd, too. Snarky old farts hunched over their beers at the bar, frat boys with popped collars, sharp-eyed pool sharks. Way in back, rowdy dart players hooted over good scores and bad ones. Gum-chomping servers wove through the crowd, trays held high, keeping customers well-watered. Charlie inhaled deeply and grinned. Good to be home. She plunged into the crowd, jabbing with her elbows when needed. At 5'2", she was easy to overlook, but only once. Damned if she was going to let some bulky behemoth step on her toes. Coming through. Watch yourself, Bubba. She skirted guffawing college kids in PSU lumberjacks hoodies and climbed onto a bar stool. The lone bartender's long braids flew as she spun from the taps to the counter and back, moving with amazing speed. But Charlie knew from years of experience it'd be a while before she got something to quench her thirst. The place was slammed. A woman wearing a Seattle Mariners ball cap atop short gray curls emerged from swinging doors behind the bar, patted the petite bartender's shoulder, and started filling beer glasses. She'd chopped off her dreadlocks and grown a little wider across the seat, but there was no mistaking that mischievous grin, those tawny, freckle-dusted cheeks. Charlie felt her heart swell in her chest. Dawn was still here. From the bar stool at the end of the bar, a gruff geezer hollered, "Man, I could die of thirst in this joint." Another familiar face. What's his name again? Keep your pants on. Dawn turned, foam-topped beer in hand, and froze. Her plump face lit up like Christmas. Charlie? The thirsty man grumbled, and Dawn slammed his beer in front of him, sloshing a quarter of its contents onto the bar. Shut your yap, Gus. Don't you recognize your old friend? Gus squinted at her, then at Dawn. With a shrug, he slurped his beer. Dawn leaned her elbows on the counter. Too pickled to remember much. Been coming here for 20 years, and last week you called me Donna. She pinched Charlie's cheek. Good to see you, Angel. Thought you were living in Portland now. What brings you back? Dad broke his leg on the job. Nasty crash. My sister watches him nights, and I've got the day shift. Without asking, Dawn handed Charlie a Mac and Jack's, her favorite. You still doing that computer stuff? Web design and maintenance. It's portable, so. She shrugged and sipped her beer. Say, do you still serve that burger with the fried onion rings? Sure thing, doll. We're slammed, though, so it'll take a while. Dawn snatched a packet of pork rinds from the rack behind the bar. This'll keep you alive. I'll tell Diego to put a rush on it. Diego's still here? She tore open the packet and stuffed a handful of crunchy, porky delight into her mouth. Best fry cook on the Ave. I'm lucky he hasn't moved on to one of those fancy new places, Dawn said over her shoulder as she pulled more beers. It's not easy to keep good people. And now Carla, my head server, is back in Minnesota for the holidays. Her mama's sick. Might be her last Christmas, so I couldn't say no. An idea tickled the back of Charlie's brain. Hardly any of her college friends still lived in Tacoma, and these past few days cooped up with Dad had her itching for some lively company. If she could still rake in tips like she used to, she'd easily earn enough to go skiing in January. How long will she be gone? Carla? Till January. Dawn's sharp brown eyes narrowed. Why? All her best decisions in life had been made quickly, a matter of trusting her gut, and right now her gut-o-meter buzzed and flashed like a slot machine. She pasted on a confident grin. Because I'm stuck here caring for Dad for at least that long, might as well earn a few bucks on the side. You know I can handle the job. What do you say? Well now. Dawn slapped her towel onto the bar and grinned. Looks like my Christmas wish has been granted. A bell behind her dinged and a brimming plate appeared on the pass-through window. She set the plate in front of Charlie. On the house. When can you start? Soon as I finish this. She lifted the burger, a real jaw stretcher, and took a bite of cheesy, beefy, crisp onion, fluffy bun heaven. Diego's special sauce oozed out the side and dripped onto her tots. I'll get the paperwork. As she headed toward her office and back, Dawn nudged the bartender. Kiara, say hi to Charlie. She's going to step in for Carla. Kiara flashed a bright smile. Howdy, Charlie. Is it Charlene? Charlotte. She popped a tot into her mouth, just as crispy as she remembered. I'd shake your hand, but she waved her greasy fingers. You all alone back there? The bartender rolled her eyes. River's late. Again. If he weren't so charming, Don would have canned his butt long ago. Oh, charming, am I? A deep baritone voice at her elbow spun Charlie around, but the guy had already slid behind the bar. Tall, blonde, broad shoulders beneath a crisp black shirt, lean but muscular, more like a dancer than a football player. His hair flopped into his eyes as he bent to scrub his hands. His short golden beard framed plush lips, mismatched earrings, a small oval onyx on the left, a silver anchor on the right, thick brown lashes. Blue eyes, I'll bet. Breath held, Charlie waited. Greenish hazel with flecks of amber. His gaze flicked up and held hers for a moment that seemed to stretch on and on.